brother.
All right, so here we are, episode 4 of Be the Standard. I'm your host, Denny Paul, joined by my co-host and best pal, Mike Burns. What's up, brother?
What's up, bro?
Before we get started, please subscribe and like our podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Rumble. What that does is it gives you premium access and updates and exclusive content as we release it. Also, check us out on Instagram, Be the Standard Podcast. Also, check us out on Instagram at Be the Standard Podcast for the business, and then my personal Denny_Paul12, and then Mike Burns1. Don't forget to check us out also on LinkedIn. You can find us there at Be the Standard Podcast. Post content in all of those places. So look forward to sharing that with you as well. And we're just going to hop right into it, I think, here.
Let's go, kid. Let's do it.
We're going to start today. We're going to talk a little bit about purpose because it's something you and I have talked about. It's something that I think a lot of people ask themselves about, right? I think a lot of people say to themselves at one point or another, what is my purpose? Why am I here? What is the reason that I exist on this earth? And I think I've struggled plenty of times in my life to try to figure out what it is that I'm here for. And, I feel like that's changed a number of times throughout my life. I felt like, when I'm in the military, I thought, I'm here to serve. This is something I'm doing that's noble, something I enjoy. So I've kind of felt that way. And then, of course, just over the years, that's changed. And I'm sure it's changed for you as well. I'm curious to know.
Yeah, my purpose, I don't feel like we're defining purpose and goals. I just want to set that out to our audience. Two completely separate things, completely.
Sure.
Goals we set and we try to get somewhere. Purpose, I believe, is something that you do and who you are and kind of drives you, what propels you forward. And I felt like mine has always been service. I feel like I've always been drawn. I get more motivated. That's a horrible word. I get more drawn and to do things for others than I do for myself. And that might be to a detriment sometimes, but I think that all the things I'm involved in, right? The military, I love doing that. Fitness with my two gyms and being a firefighter full time like that. I feel like service is my thing. I feel like that's what has been my purpose up until recently, which we'll get into in a minute. But
sure,
I feel like that's been my purpose for sure.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was alluding to as well. Is when I was in the military, I felt like service was kind of calling me, and then getting home, I was like, and you remember this, I was like, I'm going to take the police test, I'm going to take the fire test, I'm going to take corrections, whatever. So I took all these tests, and some of the jobs I just didn't want, some of the jobs just didn't work out, and then I found myself in a sales career that I really did enjoy. And still do very much enjoy. But I went from thinking that service was, ultimately my purpose, and then thinking that, maybe I'm just here to sell software and,
You're here for much more than that, then.
Yeah, no, but you know what I mean? I got into the sales career and I started doing well, financially and professionally. So I'm like, okay, here's my purpose. Now I can make some money, and that's kind of what I'm here to do. And again, it just keeps changing, it keeps evolving. And one thing that I'm definitely going to say for our viewers, and say for anybody listening, and I can say this with 100% certainty, and I don't really think there's much of it up for debate, and that is that I can tell you what your purpose is not. Your purpose is not, regardless of who you are, to go work a 9-to-5 job to make somebody else more money, to enhance, your a company that you work for, or anything like that. I believe that there's no purpose in that. So I can say definitively that that's my belief. Your purpose isn't to go to a job 9 to 5 for somebody else.
Well, it could be. I mean, you could be completely satisfied and fulfilled with that. I doubt it. I mean, that has to happen. Those people do need to exist. If that wasn't a thing in our society, I don't think we'd be there. I guess it depends on what you would, what fulfills you, right? So that would kind of like, are you getting to that end purpose? Like some people, are more than happy to not have the, like, what's the big buzzword right now? What's everyone trying to do right now? Be an entrepreneur, right? Everybody wants it, but nobody wants to go through it. And that's a hard life. And that'll be a whole other topic on another day. But some people are more than happy, just work my 9 to 5 as long as I got my family. Everything's got a roof over their head and they're happy. That's awesome. So
yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't think anybody can truly be happy that way. Maybe that's, and again, maybe that's just my own perspective, but I don't think, I don't see any purpose in that.
You don't.
No, you're right. I mean, everybody's purpose is different, so I understand what you're trying to say. Me personally,
we don't have a society if we don't have that, right? It doesn't.
I agree. So there have to be those people, right?
And now the people that are fighting against that, those are people that need to break out of that. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about all the time, right? Like, hey, if this is not you, this is what you should move your life along and find out what that is. But some people are more than happy, more than fulfilled. Their purpose is, hey, work this 9 to 5, but maybe outside of that, maybe it's extracurricular thing.
Well, and that's what I mean. I think there's got to be something more to it. Like maybe like that person who maybe enjoys their 9 to 5 job. I enjoy my job. Yeah. I love doing what I do. But I know that's not my purpose. I'm not here to sell software for a consulting firm.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that there's got to be more to it, and that's my point. My point is that your purpose is not to go work a 9 to 5 for somebody else and forget about what the goals and all the things that you've set.
And go through the rest of life kind of like, okay.
And that's kind of the point where I was going with that is not that you can't be happy in your job. Of course, like I mean, we all have bills to pay, and I'm going to get into that in a second. What drives you towards your purpose, right? And there's such thing as a push versus pull methodology is what I saw when I was because I was looking at this stuff online, kind of just like how do I best want to describe it? And I think push versus pull, motivations that drive you towards your purpose made the most sense to me, and what you see as push motivations are essentially your obligations. Like you have to pay your rent, you have to buy clothes, you have to pay for your kids' college tuition, whatever the case may be, right? So those are your push motivations. Like those are the things pushing you towards, I got to do this. This is why I'm here. I have to do these things. Then you have your pull motivation, which is where I think I'm at right now. Yeah. I'm being pulled towards something, right?
Yep.
In the sense of this is what keeps me up at night. This podcast keeps me up at night, right? This is what drives me to get up early.
Yeah,
I wake up at 4:30 a.m. and I start thinking about things that I want to discuss on the podcast. So I'm being pulled.
Just so you guys know, like that's for real. I'll get a text at him. I'm getting up ready to go to work. Fire department doesn't matter or whatever. And he's texting me about this podcast. So you're definitely being. I think you're being called upon. That's my. Okay, you're being
I mean, we'll find out. I mean, either way, it's just that the push versus pull, and I feel like what's pulling you, is what should be your biggest motivator, because that's where you find your passion. That's where I'm finding mine is sharing my story, through this podcast, and he'll probably never see this, but Bedros Keuilian, right? I reached out to him personally and I was like, hey man, I feel like I have a story to tell. Yeah. And, I'm not sure how I should do it. Should I write a book? Should I do a podcast? And he flat out responded to me and said, forget the book for now. Just do the podcast and just release killer content on YouTube. That's what he said. Just get to releasing content, do the podcast. You can do the book, but for now, focus on that. Do the book later. So that's what I've done. And I kind of just feel like, it's been great advice, and like I said, I'm being pulled in this direction and I know I am because it is keeping me up at night. It is getting me up out of bed earlier. So that's kind of my thoughts on purpose right now. And for me right now, I feel like my purpose is it revolves around sharing the story and helping people. If I can help people, that's the ultimate goal here is to help as many people as possible. I'm not going to use that corny saying is, if I can just help one person, it's worth it. But if I can help somebody, that's the whole idea behind this.
And that's what resonates with me with this, Ben. As you know me, like anything, if it helps people, I'm all about it. And the things I talked about earlier, like things I have like the military, the fire department and the gyms, like there's never been a day, not one single day, I'm like, oh man, I have to do this today.
Yeah.
Not one time. I'm like, oh man, I gotta go to the gym today. I gotta coach some people. I gotta go to the military. I gotta go to the fire department. I look forward to all these things. So that's how I know. Just like what you just said,
Yeah.
like you're being pulled. Like you get up. You're anxious to do this.
Yeah.
There's never a day I'm like, oh man, like I have to do this today, and that's where I'm very fortunate and blessed to say that, because a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, that I really truly believe, like not believe, but these are things I live, and I'm not like, oh man, I got to do this today. Nope, not one day does that happen to me, and I hope it doesn't. I hope this stays this way, and if it does, that's when I don't think I'm afraid to pivot things in my life.
Yeah.
If it were to change, like, hey, I got to go do this now. That's okay with me. So
yeah, and to that point, you see, and it's tough to buy into, like, obviously a lot of stuff you see online, and you hear a lot of millionaires saying a lot of different things, but you do hear people say
we're so-called millionaires.
we're so-called, yeah, there's plenty of fake people obviously on the internet. It's so crazy, because anybody with a internet connection can basically say or whatever, put whatever they want out there.
Mm-hmm.
But you do see people with credibility say things like, if you love what you do, then you're not really working.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You won't work a day in your life if you love what you do, whatever the saying is. And I believe that, right? I mean, if I could get paid to do this and people actually in engaged with us, and this takes off, I mean, that's how I'm going to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I think it's rare to be able to do that. You have to really, I think it's a grind to be able to get there. But if you do get there, I think it's worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and when it comes to purpose too, there's also other things, right? Like, for me, opposition, right? Tell me I can't do something, and I'm gonna want to do it more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another principle of, that can drive you towards your purpose, is just opposition and being told that you can't do something, or people, you bring an idea to someone and they shoot it down, and you see it, you even, like, I had a friend I told about this podcast, and he's like, yeah, well, I don't really know how I feel about that, like, who's gonna want to listen and whatever, and I just blocked it all out. But that's the type of stuff that falls under that opposition category of the criticism that, like, just drives you to want to do it more.
Yeah, oh, I love it, man. Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you're getting critics, you're probably doing the right thing. I think, because people. Well, unfortunately, those are not the people you want to surround yourself with. We talked about this in the episode before, where we're going to kind of hold you back and say, "Hey, what are you doing? You're crazy," But sometimes we're gonna get a lot of noise on this. Like, what are they talking about? Who do they think they are to be talking about these things?
Yeah.
Hey, we're just talking about our experience, and that is it. You take from it what you want, and I hope it does help you guys. But
exactly. That's the whole idea behind it. And another thing is just that drives me towards the next principle of, like, purpose, and driving you towards your purpose is competition, and just proving to yourself that you can do something after you're told not to, or just you're telling yourself, like, even just starting this, I've had senses of self-doubt, like, yeah, is this smart, should I be doing this, is it gonna work, and all that stuff is just noise.
The hardest thing is to do is put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Like this, you can't put yourself out there any more than this.
No,
you really can't.
No.
Like, you're putting yourself out there on a podcast. You put your life story out there. You put your backstory in there, and what we're thinking in our minds, truly, out there to the world to judge, and they're going to, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's cool that you're doing this, and I'm glad to be along with this journey with you, because people are not willing to do this. People want to say, what they think they want to hear. The people say stuff like that, but they're really not going to give their opinion and make themselves vulnerable, like we're going to on this podcast, and really show people who we are as humans, as people. You know what I mean? Instead of this facade that we put out in the regular world. So I think it's cool.
Yeah, and I put up a post on that on Instagram one day. It was just, everyone says, I don't care what anybody thinks about me.
Oh, they do.
Everyone says
they
it.
do.
But how many people live it? Not a lot of people live it. And I think there's when you finally, and it took me time. I haven't always been this way,
Mm-hmm.
but it took me time when I finally got there, and now I'm there. Like I don't give a fuck what a single person thinks
Mm-hmm.
about me, because I know who I am.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, when you can live that way,
Oh,
that is such a
such a
powerful
liberty.
position to be in,
Oh,
right?
so good.
It's insane, and I've honestly never been this comfortable being that way, and it's fucking it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's totally different, right?
Can't touch
It's
you.
crazy,
Yeah.
you know. But just getting back to like just purpose and things that drive you towards
Yeah.
it. Another thing for me is, again, I did like some research on this online. Like, what are the things that you should be identifying as motivating factors or driving factors towards your purpose? And one of the things is necessity, right? You have your house, you need a roof over your head, you need food, you need water, you need this and that, and things you have to have. And these are things that as a kid, I can remember as a kid not having certain things. Um, and I remember. So the reason I ended up in foster care is because my mom, who was involved in drugs, obviously, she left me alone for like 5 days in an apartment. There was no electricity. All I was wearing was my underwear and t-shirt. There was no food. I remember like scraping like a peanut butter jar, just like trying to eat something. And
How old were you during this time?
it was probably right around when I was 4 or 5, because it was right before I went to foster care. I went to foster care at 5, so I think I was 5, but I remember it. I remember being alone in the apartment, like in the dark, right? Just being like, where the fuck is my mother? And she did this a few times. Like she'd leave for like 3, 4, 5 days, and like then come back. But I think the reason I got found or caught is because I wandered upstairs to the guy who lived upstairs, and he's like, "Where the fuck is your mother?"
Well, you didn't get caught. She got caught.
She got right.
You got found.
So yeah. So I wandered upstairs because I was like, "What the fuck's going on?" Like I must have just been like, "What the hell's going on?" Right? And so I wander upstairs, and the guy was like, "Your fucking mom's gone again," or whatever he said. I don't remember exactly, but I remember him being upset. And then after that, I just remember being, somewhere with like the state. I was staying somewhere with the state, and then ended up at one foster family. Was there for a little bit, like not long, and then I ended up in my foster family where I was at for years. Where I talked about this in the last episode. My foster mom, who was just amazing, who I had a great relationship with my entire life, or her and the rest of her entire life. But yeah, no, that's how it happened. But just back to that point of necessity, right? Like, I'm afraid to not to I don't think I know I'll never go back there,
Right.
but it's still in the back of your mind that fuck, like if you've ever been there,
Yeah.
you think it's possible to go back to it. If you've never experienced it, you don't realize that it's real.
Oh yeah.
You know.
So that's one thing I can relate to, obviously. And
Yeah.
obviously, I was never in foster care. My mother was awesome. She did the best she could, but we grew up extremely poor.
Yeah.
My mother, me and my brother, she worked at McDonald's, and that was it. I mean, we grew up in little one-bedroom shacks. I definitely knew what it was like to be poor. Christmas would come, you have nothing, church, hopefully the church gave you something, like you'd be like, oh, this is cool. But yeah, I mean, I remember most of my childhood until my mother, met my stepfather, and he definitely took care of us, which I give him a lot of credit for.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up very poor, so I know what it's like, and I could definitely know that I don't want to be there again. I definitely don't want that for my family, and give all the credit to my mother to be able to do that, with me and my brother and all the stuff that she's gone through with that. So yeah,
I met your mom last summer. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, she's
really
good.
Sweet. She's sweet.
Yeah. So yeah, motivating factor there is like you don't want to be there. You don't ever want to go back there. Like literally, you just don't know. You don't have clothes. You don't have. You're getting picked on in school.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it'd be like now, though. That's
worse now with the
whole
internet.
topic. Oh man.
With the internet, I mean, you got a stepdaughter who's high school age.
Yeah.
I mean, she could probably tell you some stories.
It's unbelievable. At least when I used to go home, you're home. You're safe. Now they don't have that. But definitely growing up poor, very poor. But being again, like I didn't have a mom that neglected me. My mom did the best she could, and she did good. I mean, she did good. She worked hard, and despite the challenges that she had personally, she put those aside and got through it, and got here we are. So
Yeah, I mean, as I still hold like my parents accountable, but they did the best they could. I mean, my aunt who adopted me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, not her fault. Like she
Yep.
did, I think she did a great job. She's such an amazing woman. Um, you know, so she did what she could, and I think that I'm not a parent, but I think that's the idea, to just do your best, right? um,
Right.
and you're gonna relate to this next one as far as, again, driving factors towards finding your purpose. It's growth. We talk about this all the time, that growth mindset. And I'm somebody that needs to be, I need to develop, I need to advance, I need to have forward momentum in whatever I'm doing, or else I lose interest in it, or I won't, give it all of my effort, and do the things that I'm supposed to. But, those are the things that I've evolved as far as, with that growth mindset is, the gym, work, my relationships, just giving everything I have to it. And those things need to be advancing. And I talked about this before,
Yep.
is if I'm not benefiting from a relationship, if that relationship's not mutually beneficial, I don't see the point, and,
Yeah.
and I'll completely back off of it, or it will just slowly dissolve, right, over
Yeah.
time, and it just happens that way. But I mean, you're big on a growth mindset, so I want to know your perspective.
Yeah, I mean that's what drives me. I didn't realize that drove me until probably till years ago, and just knowing if I'm not growing, it sounds weird to say this, but I feel like I'm decaying. Like if you're not pushing uphill, you're going to go back downhill, right?
Yeah.
And that's just how I feel, and that's how I know. And not everyone can feel that way, and I'm not telling them they need to feel that way, but I know that for myself personally. If I'm not growing, I'm not fulfilled. I feel like I'm going backwards. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And even just in the past year, it's been a struggle. Like, it's been a hard year.
Yeah.
I took it on an adventure that did not go the way I thought it would. It's still not going the way I thought it would. And but that's life, right? So, and how you take it. But
You're handling that better than I would. We're not going to get into details,
yeah,
obviously, but man, this guy's a stud, just so you know.
no, it's nothing to do with that. But it's just tough times come up and things don't go the way you invest everything, literally everything, every emotional piece of me, money wise, everything, and it just didn't work out, and that's okay. But and to kind of delve into the purpose and just kind of get into something, you know, recent, very recent, and I won't take up the whole podcast for this, but my purpose before was like in service of others, and then I married my wife Alini and my stepdaughter Bella, and then they became my purpose. Everything I do for them. And then recently, I just had an experience. As you know me, like I don't talk things, I don't make things up, I don't pretend to be about anything unless I'm about it, right? And up until I think it was last Sunday, I don't know what today is, but I actually had a calling from God, and I was pulled from Him. And I never would. Anyone that knows me knows I would never say that lightly, and I never really believed. I grew up very religious, very religious. My mother was very religious, but even my father, when he came into my life, he's very religious, and I just never bought into it. Respected it always, but never bought into it. And then recently I had an experience, which I won't get into this in this podcast. I'm still figuring it out. But where I was pulled, like you said, I love that you use the word pulled. Like that's the only way I can describe it. I was pulled that day from God in church that just I could not hold myself emotionally, and it's completely broke down. And now I know that God is real, and I live my life for Him, put Him first, and everything else will fall into place. And if it does, like I just know, like it's a hard thing to put, but that's now my purpose, and that will be my focus. And this just happened. So I'm glad that this podcast actually got to document this.
Yeah.
We go from episode 1 and 2 where this was not a thing, and now here we are. So again, I'm not going to take up I don't want to take up too much on that, but until I really figure this out, but I just know this is now my purpose, and hopefully, not hopefully, I can't wait to see where it takes me.
Yeah, no, it's funny like that you just had that happen. I started more out of curiosity than anything. So I grew up religious as well, Catholic, went to church, all that stuff. And right around, or actually when we deployed to Afghanistan, is when I decided that religion just wasn't my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because my justification for that was, they're literally trying to kill us, because they think their religion tells us they should, right? And I'm starting to think while I'm over there, like, okay, well, they have their religion, I have mine. There's so many different religions. Which one's right? So I never, same with you. I never judged religion. I was never anti-religion. I was just wasn't religious for a number of years. And then literally 2.5 months ago, I started out of curiosity, nothing else. I had never done this front to back. And I went to Catholic school as a kid, 7th and 8th grade. And I had never done this before. I just started reading the Bible. I literally just started reading the Bible. I asked my girlfriend, I said, or my girlfriend's father, because he's very religious. He goes to church and stuff every Sunday. I said, where should I start? He goes, start with the New Testament. I'm like, okay. So now 2.5 months, I've been reading the New Testament, and I'm like, every time I read it, I'm like, holy shit. I snap a picture of my phone. I pull something every time I read that book. Something hits me now, and now I am also a believer, and I kind of just feel like, um, with just everything. Like I'm still feel very fortunate with everything in my life, and there's got to be a reason for that, right? And so I do the same thing now. It's all about God, and it's all about Him helping me to not only find my purpose, but to maintain that purpose. And I'm glad you brought that up, because my next question to you is going to be, how do you align your daily actions with your purpose?
Yeah, so that's great. So I have close friends that they said they would pray every day, and I was like, I was very happy for them because. But one thing I won't do is pray to something I don't believe or go through motions. Or really, the big thing I was talking to my wife about this the other day is how can I ask? Because I'm in a bad position. Only because I'm in a bad position am I going to ask God for something. I feel like that's very selfish, and I wouldn't do it. I was like, I don't want to be that guy that's like, hey, God, can you help me? Because I need your help because I need something.
But when I didn't need it, I wasn't asking. I wasn't
yeah,
there for you.
When things were great in my life, when you were providing for me, why was I, acknowledging you there? So I refuse to do that. And, but now, so to go back to what you're saying, like now, again, I don't want to hijack your podcast here, but like, it's just the praise God. Like I pray every day now. Like I pray with my wife, and I can tell you, and not to get emotional, because I get emotional thinking about this, because it's very emotional for me to pray with your significant other. Mm-hmm. There's nothing like it. I've experienced something else like it. Like to pray with my wife and give it to God. It's unbelievable. And this is just new to me, so I don't want to get too much into the weeds now, but I can tell you right now, like because you asked me the question, my daily purpose is for God. Like I really am. At night, I end my night that way. I start my day that way. Mm-hmm. Danny, I was up in your bathroom. I prayed. I kneeled down in the bathroom and prayed today. Wow! Like this is, and people who know me, people that know me, know this is a big deal. Like I don't think I never did these things. I don't think this way. So, anyways,
and that's a good point. Like so I don't actually pray. I don't sit there with but what I do is I'll sit there now every single night. I lay in bed and I have a conversation with God. I say something. I say first thing I always start with, "Hey, I thank you so much for just the blessings I have. Whatever." Mm-hmm. I say thank you every single day, and that's just kind of, a process that it's just part of my daily process now. Is every day I just have a conversation. It can be a minute. It can go on for 10 minutes. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I just talk until I don't have anything else to say. But as far as aligning your daily actions with your purpose, for me, it goes back to the principles of this podcast, which is setting standards, creating habits, execution, accountability, and being kind to everybody. I mentioned that, I think, in the first podcast, was that for me, my newest standard that I've set for myself is just be nice to everybody, to be kind to everyone. Read the Bible every day. Just about every day I read it now. And that's been incredibly helpful to me as far as just aligning, again, your actions with your purpose. And I think all of those things just work in conjunction with one another. And I guess I'll end it with just one more question is, have there been challenges in staying true to your purpose? I mean, I know your purpose kind of shifted more recently, but in the past, maybe, have there been challenges regarding just staying true to your purpose and, overcoming that?
Yeah. So I would absolutely say yes. Mm-hmm. Especially this past year, like, and again, on my way over here, these things just go through my mind. I'm like, I try to balance all these things in my mind. I'm trying to do the businesses, the new business, like, Rail Trail, which I love, and all this stuff. I'm just like, man, like, why can't I stay focused on these things? And I feel like it's all recently really just kind of like just a jumble, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like with my new purpose now, it's going to put that all together. And it has. So
Yeah.
the challenge, yes, absolutely. There's been a challenge in the purpose, and almost getting back to where just keep it simple. Like I feel like the more we add into our lives, the complexity of it, it kind of it challenges your purpose. Like, wait a minute, what you don't want to. I'm not saying you can't have a lot, but if you don't have that purpose, that North Star, then it's all going to fade away. You're going to lose track of all of it. And so now I have my true North Star now, and I can't wait to update as this podcast goes on.
Yeah.
How it all goes.
Yeah, and I guess my own response to that same question is that every single day is a challenge to maintain and stay true to your purpose is because you have to stay in lines with your values and your principles, and you can have all of those things, but it's hard to live it every single day. It's hard to do all those right things that you're supposed to be doing every single day, and things happen in life to just make it more difficult, right?
Yeah.
But it's important that you stay true to it, and it's important that you first identify your purpose, and then stay true to it, and again, just align yourself with the right principles and values, and I think that's key.
But also on that, if you don't know your purpose, don't get frustrated and give up. Just you know what I mean. Just keep working.
Sure. Yeah, so I appreciate you guys, listening in. We appreciate, again, every minute you spend with us is very much appreciated. We know that you can obviously be spending your time in so many different places, so many different podcasts. So very much appreciate your time and your effort to listen in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and Rumble. And then also, please check us out on Instagram, and you can find us at Be The Standard Podcast on Instagram for the business. Denny_Paul12 is my personal, and then Mike Burns1 is his personal. And also check us out on LinkedIn at Be The Standard Podcast. And again, we very much appreciate your time, and thank you so much.
Be The Standard.
Just waiting for it.